What did the weird kid in your school do? I wore pants that were too tight to school one day. I ended up very uncomfortable, fidgeting and adjusting myself constantly. That day, a volunteer from the local zoo came to show us a slideshow of animal pictures. I took it as an opportunity to try to adjust my situation in earnest. The end result was that I became the weird kid who, rumor has it, jacks off to pictures of animals. High school was not fun. In 9th grade, a kid asked this girl to jerk him off during a science video because the lights were off. She refused, so he jerked it himself, came in his own hand, and slapped her right in the face. Expelled. He would stand in the bathroom stall every passing period, peek over the top of the stall, and meow at people. Evidently more than one kid did this, but sorry, this was in Indiana. That's hilarious, you should have joined him. In 5th grade, I remember a kid peeing into the radiator in the middle of class. The teacher asked him what the heck he was doing and he said, "I'm warming my dong," as though that would have been somehow less weird. I just had a kid that licked my blood off the gym floor. Barely shines a light on the sick fricks you people had to deal with. Nope, would rather watch all these other weirdos, except the kid who crap in shoes, than this dude who licks blood off the floor. That is messed up. There was this one girl who would walk around with a notepad and write down what people are doing in detail, then report to the teachers. Last I heard of her, she was in the slammer for possession of crack. Sounds like Randall from the show Recess. I only had the fat white kid who only spoke in rap. It was the early 1990s, and gangster rap was on the rise, but this kid kept it Run DMC Sugar Hill style old school. Heck, I think he even wore Adidas sneakers with no laces. Not so Slim Shady. Walked only in straight lines. Really cracked me up whenever he'd misjudge a corner or wall, and he'd have to pivot 90 degrees, take a step, pivot back 90 degrees and continue walking. I had several classes with him and would give him crap about it all the time. He was also the smartest kid in school, so he had that going for him. Obviously a robot. This one chick was 1,000,000% all about anime and manga. To the point it was just weird. She didn't bathe, always wore the same couple of worn out shirts, wore fake cat ears all the time and crap like that. Always tried to mimic the facial expressions you commonly see in anime. She insisted she spoke Japanese, and often spoke in Japanese during class and such. But it wasn't Japanese, or any language. It was just her making crap up off the top of her head. She could draw pretty well though, but her drawings were all overly physical, haha. There was a whole clique of these kids, but she was leaps and bounds more to the extreme than any of them. If I could, I would bet money she's either a frequent user of Reddit or 4chan. Oh my god, this is why I don't tell anyone that I like anime, otherwise they'll immediately picture me as this person. I'm currently sitting 10 featuring away from a guy who was caught beating the bush in math class 3 times in 3 consecutive years. I guess he just really likes math. He was overly aggressive to everyone. He secretly brought a knife with him to school every day. He'd call any girl with a boyfriend a WSB, etc. He'd call black kids N and give orders to them like they were a slave. During a biology class, when there was a picture of a monkey on the screen, he said that it looked like the only black kid in the class. He'd call Hispanic kids immigrants and treat them like day laborers, offering them a penny to run simple errands for him. He'd ask Vietnamese kids if they were short or ugly or stupid because their parents were hit with Agent Orange. He'd ask Chinese kids if their parents were the bastard debauched babies of Nanking. He loved war and death and carnage. He stood all the time. I mean, he was a decent enough kid. He'd help you out with your homework. He worked on student council, captained the cross-country team, but he never sat down. Math? He'd be standing at the back, taking notes. Computer class? Standing at his computer. Lunch? He found the one surface in the cafeteria that was at chest height, a friggin' handrail by the stairs, and balanced his tray on it to eat. Whenever someone would ask him, he'd just say "'cause I can." It's a better excuse than most of the weird guys in this thread. But seriously, what? For a high school with a population of 109, it was pretty weird. We had an annual French exchange program. We would go there for a fortnight, then they would come here for a fortnight and stay without families. The weird kid had an attractive girl as his exchange. One night she woke up to him standing over her bed masturbating. The only reason he didn't get expelled was because he told the school about everyone in our year who was smoking weed at weekends, including himself. 15 people were suspended and put on random drug testing, including me. 2 boys were expelled. He got a Saturday detention. Stuff his mouth with his lunch and drink his milk at the same time. Then he'd sew with his mouth wide open and laugh like a madman. This one finally made me laugh out loud. This man might actually be awesome. In 5th grade, there was this rail thin girl named Stephanie. Stephanie had sunken eyes. Stephanie never spoke. Stephanie had that super long, super straight hair most often associated with women who drown their own children. Stephanie used to sit at her desk with long strands of snot hanging from her nose. I'm talking from her nose to the top of her desk. Stephanie did not suck the snot back in. Stephanie did not let the snot drop off. Stephanie was barely alive. Stephanie moved before middle school. Stephanie sounds like she needed a hug and a lot of food. My husband said he was friends with a kid in school who he didn't think was particularly odd. That was until he went to his house and he showed them what he liked to do with the vacuum cleaner. Welp, everything seems in order in this room. Oh my god, these carpets are immaculate. Hey everybody, this kid's weird. TR, this kid was passive aggressive to one teacher for no reason. He was generally a nice, quiet kid, but he would frick with our English teacher like every day. I mean, he always did small ploys mixed with long cons. Frequently, he would raise his hand when the teacher was asking us for an answer. Then when chosen, he'd lower his hand and look back at his book like he wasn't even chosen not 5 seconds ago. She would just sit there and look at him angrily to answer, but he wouldn't. Also, he would ask general questions that required long explanations, and while she explained he would act like he went to sleep. After a while she stopped asking him to participate in class. One of his major ploys was he would basically ask everyone for like old butt cell phones, ones that didn't even work, and they'd give it to him for like $2. He would then proceed to act like he was on one of his phones texting while the teacher was teaching class. She would get upset and confiscate it. The very next time we had her alternate block schedule, he would do the same thing. She would confiscate it every time. About 4 or 5 months and she questioned how he had 16 different phones. He would get them back at the end of the week. They were all incredibly different from each other, and tried to use one she took from him. It didn't even turn on. She gave him a look and he just stared at her with a seat crap poker face. She then decided he was just gonna frick with her for the rest of the year and stop taking his fake phones. This is when he actually started using his actual phone, and would text like all dang class. Some jealous bee would get their phone taken and be like, OMG, but Wadokid is always texting and you never take his phone? Ugh. She replied by saying he's just faking and will not be made a mockery of. He never got in trouble for that, so he decided to change his tactics. Now he would ask to use the bathroom and never come back to class. Like one time he just walked out our classroom, made a beeline straight for the student parking lot and went home. She was outraged and called in a parent meeting with him and the principal. I don't know what was discussed, but the next day he showed up with a medical note excusing himself from the bathroom rule. She was P, but she couldn't deny him the bathroom at all. He then never went to the bathroom during class. I had him in other classes, and he never did anything. He didn't even dislike the teacher he would frick with, but she was the only one he fricked with. I still to this day lay up at night wondering why. He finally answered me back on Facebook. It was his dad's brother's ex-wife and apparently he was to be paid $900 to frick with her. He did it for free. I am in love with everything about this right now. This is the sole reason Facebook exists. Solve it, Sherlock. Report back in 2 days. OP is confirmed hetero. Was singing opera out on the bus lot with his shirt off. The next day, he made a fake bomb and got suspended. Not expelled because he had serious mental issues. Mental issues and making bombs kinda sounds more like he's unstable and should be expelled. Molest a mannequin at a department store, as well as be a general bully and weirdo. Oh mannequin man, where are you now? I got bullied by a kid in an electric wheelchair my sophomore year, so it was probably me. It started my first day of school, had just moved back from 6 years overseas, and I held a door open for him. He jerked off in the ag. Shop bathroom. On an almost daily basis. People would kick in the door and catch him all the time. Dude was weird as frick on a serious level. This kid would always assume he was the smartest little crap around, and every 10 minutes during a lecture he would raise his hand to correct the teacher, and every 10 minutes the kid was wrong. He would also sit outside and meditate in the rain. One day some of my friends played a little prank on him. They put a note in his locker saying that he had been chosen by the government to save humanity from impending doom, and that he only had 3 days to do so. So the note went on and said that he must go to the freshman building and to look behind a garbage can, and there would be a package. So there were a stack of papers behind a garbage can with a bunch of random letters and numbers, and it said solve the code. So for the next 3 days straight this kid would try and solve this code, and whenever someone would ask him what he was doing he'd look anxious and say don't worry about it. In this time my friends would text him from various numbers to give him more info, and what was dumb about it was that those numbers all had our area code, but he never suspected crap. When his time limit was up my friends cut out a picture of an explosion or accident or something from the newspaper and put it in his locker and wrote you couldn't save us. Look what you've done, and he felt so crappy. Then my friends told him they were just fricking with him, and then he got real mad. This sounds like a Dwight Schrute thing. There was a weird kid in my school, a brother of a kid in my year, about 3 years younger than us. If you took out your keys and jingled them at him he would chase you like a puppy coming after a stick. He didn't have any diagnosed mental illnesses, so I reserve the right to laugh. The weird kid in my school used to think he could do magic. Not like card trick magic, like witchcraft, wizard type magic. He used to think that he could levitate stuff, transform things into frogs and crap. He wrote these spell books that were hundreds of pages long and had all their weird ancient looking drawings. He had like 20 of these books that were filled with who knows what. He would show them off to people, but never let people read them. He thought he was a computer hacker too. He downloaded a program that worked with command prompt and pretended that he was performing tests on himself. He got a headphones cable with a needle-like thing on one end and plugged it into the computer, then stuck the needle-like part into his arm and started typing random crap into command prompt pretending that he was doing those tests. I value his determination. 20 books, man. In middle school, we had a girl crap her pants in the middle of class. I really do feel bad for what happened. Think of how embarrassed she must have been, and how she probably could not control it. But anytime I hear her name, all I can think is that's the girl who crap her pants. The girl who crap her pants, man. The quality of Stieg Larsson's writing has gone downhill. The weird kid in my class would apparently show up drunk to school, even though I don't think he was. He would also talk a lot about setting fires or cutting things with various knives, or shooting guns at animate objects. He eventually got caught fricking a special needs girl in the D building bathroom. Weird little sucker he was. If there was a category for most likely to become a serial killer he would be it. Sounds like a young Trevor Phillips. A kid in my class would save his milk from our morning milk break in his desk. Then one afternoon he drank his month-old chocolate milk, which naturally made him vomit, and that set off a 6-child vomit train in our 2nd grade class. But he also had a flying squirrel that he brought in to show and tell, so that was cool about him, but also weird. Goddammit, Ashley. Ashley cried after a guest speaker in English class made a passing reference to enjoying poetry that rhymed. You're devaluing poetry because it doesn't rhyme. During a senior year class session that talked about interview tactics, Ashley informed the teacher that she didn't shake hands because she doesn't touch and wouldn't take one if offered. Ashley came to high school graduation carrying one of those stuffed animal backpacks. Ashley cut her ankle repeatedly, talked about it at school, and then got mad when another classmate told our guidance counselor about it. In college, I was blessed with this classmate from 8th grade through sophomore year of university. Ashley carried the aforementioned backpack while wearing a long green skirt, bright white tennies, and her boyfriend's sweatshirt. Her boyfriend was approximately 80 pounds heavier than her. Ashley denounced her first psych class as impossible because there were too many things taught that she couldn't believe. Things like, the average person is more afraid of plane crashes than asthma attacks. Because Ashley was more afraid of the opposite, and that babies before 8 months old don't understand object permanence. because Ashley had toys from that age that she would know if they'd went missing. She now has a kid, Joy. Always ran everywhere and had bomb schematics. Not joking. Sometimes he would come up to people and pretend to set their hair on fire with a lighter. Always ran everywhere. Maybe he was the main character in a video game. I tell people about Ethan. Ethan was one of my closest friends in high school and he is still one of my favorite people to be around. Ethan has taken a bunch of Benadryl, painkillers, and atropine pills and stabbed my friend in the hand. Ethan did somewhere near 300 nitrous oxide canisters in a day. They are sold in boxes of 24. Ethan has cooked his own crack. Enough about the drugs though, because books could be written on that alone. One time he stole his dad's $30,000 watch and attempted to sell it for $200. Oh, also he lost it. At one point he had a party at his house and instead of cleaning up he put all of the garbage from the party under his bed and his parents found out within a few days. Once when we were at the East River in NYC he hung off the railing with both hands. Now the East River is not your average everyday river. First of all, it's not really open to the public, so there are not any easy ways to get in and out of it. Second of all, it's a cesspool of filth that contains all the sewage from New York City. It's a pretty freaking gross river and this kid willingly hung himself over the railing to impress his friends. Oh, also he got a D in anatomy, which was a ridiculously easy class that everyone aced, and got an A in AP physics. He is one of the only 5 or so people in my high school's history to receive a 5 on the AP physics test. Probably one of the most memorable things he has done was show up to school with an absurd amount of scratches on his face. When I say this kid had scratches on his face, I mean it looked like he was attacked by a wolverine. The weird thing was he only had the scratches on his cheeks, not his nose, mouth, forehead, or any other part of his face, just his cheeks. The scratches were not normal either, they were all perfectly straight lines. He wouldn't tell anyone how it happened or what happened. When asked what happened to his face, he said he got a haircut. He had actually gotten a new haircut, which somehow made the whole thing even more bizarre. As one of his best friends, I asked what happened and he told me he befriended a bunch of homeless people at night in Central Park and one of them attacked him because he refused to give him a cigarette. I don't believe him, but that's the only explanation he has ever offered. There is more I could write if anyone is interested, but I am done for now. The weird kid at my school used to slather his hand in honey or peanut butter, and then when the halls were super crowded in between classes, he would hold it up like he was soliciting a high five. Amongst a sea of teenagers, you could never tell exactly who was asking for a high five, and someone always wound up obliging him. What a dong. That was the worst, going in for that slap, and feeling the instant stick. This actually sounds more hysterical than weird to me. Pretend he was in an RPG game by himself. He was new, so he had no friends at the time. He was looked down upon by all girls and all the cool kids. Wipes tear. I was that boy. Plus 10 cringe. This kid was beyond weird. He always seemed really passionate about school and talked to me about different subjects like science, French, and English literature. He was a really smart kid too, and even got a 1940 on his SATs. However, despite his interests, he did nothing. I knew all of his grades since they were online, and then found out that at the end of the year, he failed all of his classes. So he'll be in my grade next year. Why? Maybe because he skipped all of his final exams. He just didn't want to take them. Or maybe because he got a 14 average in French, a language that he speaks fluently. He also skipped class very often, but not for normal reasons. He reads in the bathroom. What I don't understand is how he loves books so much that he will actually skip his English class to read those books in the bathroom, and then fail the class. Oh yeah, and he also did strange things to other people. Just one story, out of dozens, that comes to mind now is when he went into one of his friend's open lockers, took out all of his books, and hid them in the second floor bathroom, and then proceeded to tell him, "I don't know where your things are." Another friend found them later. This little dude by the name of Ozzie was my school's weird kid. During science class, he would routinely form himself into a ball and spend the entire class cooing to himself under the bookcase. When he actually bothered to sit at his desk, he would refuse to do any work and just spend the entire period drawing anatomically correct birds. He had a very feminine face, not helped by his 3-foot long hair, which he never brushed. That led me to believe for almost 2 months he was a she till he switched gym classes and I saw him in the guys' locker room. He also had an odd taste in dress. He wore crocheted hats made to look like owls, and sweatpants at least 2 sizes too small for him. All this would be fine if he had stopped during middle school. Nope. I saw him laying under a table in the library yesterday. You go, bird kid. There was a kid that couldn't speak to girls, so instead he'd get their phone number off of someone and send them photos of his dong. Sometimes he'd just go through their bag and take their phone momentarily to get the number. He also shat his pants at year 10 camp on the way to laser tag and proceeded to play for 4 hours with crap in his pants. When we got back to the backpackers we stayed at, he put his underwear in the bin. The bin in the hallway that was shared by 80 students. He only wore the color green and refused to sit on chairs properly, would only squat on them, through 8th grade. Then he went to special school for smart people and was the first person to unlock the iPhone, and now he works for Google and there was a New Yorker article about him. Hope this doesn't get buried. I'm just using the terminology that Wikipedia uses. Is an American hacker known for unlocking the iPhone, allowing the phone to be used with other wireless carriers. The weird kid at our school shaved his eyebrows when we were on 7th grade. He would do all sorts of crazy stuff for attention which we all found entertaining. Then he went away for a while. Then on Drug Awareness Day the next year he showed up with the other kids who had gone through the drug rehabilitation program. He went on to tell us that he had been taking all sorts of drugs but his drug of choice was H. So the weird kid at our school was a junkie. I'm pretty sure I was the weird kid. I enjoyed my imaginary friends' company way more than the real kids. I was the youngest in class. I guess I wasn't on the same level as the other kids in Italy and developed into someone who enjoyed isolation. I wasn't the smelly kid though. Got that going for me. Dang. We had the smelly kid too in elementary school. He was used to get beaten and harassed regularly. I really felt sorry for him, especially after I found out that his mom was the only one he had, but she would simply neglect him. We had the girl that used to celeb in math class. We had the guy that ate his boogers in history. Heck, we even had the fat brinnies that dressed like ponies. But one kid took the cake. Not only did he jerk off to pee in computer class, eat food from the garbage, and fart as loud as possible in class to the point he shat himself once. No, this kid would ask to see your shoe. And if you were dumb enough to trust him or you didn't know who he was and gave him your shoe, he would pull his pants down and crap the biggest, nastiest, wettest crap into your shoe, pick it back up and hand it to you before walking away like nothing happened. He didn't just get away with this once, not twice or 3 times, no, 6 people, 6 shoes shat in. This kid, my hat is off to you wherever you are now, you shoe crapping bastard. Someone took a crap in a shoe at my school too. They blamed it on the obese kid, but it would be physically impossible for him to do that with so much accuracy. Now this kid had long hair, chubby, mumbled, weird jokes, never went out, not many friends, addicted to the Xbox. He eventually changed in year 11, but dang, thank God I changed. Thought you were talking about me at first. The weird kid in my class would go around collecting everyone's chewed gum. If you threw it out, he'd dive to the can to get it, and sometimes would ask, "Are you done with that?" while you were still chewing it. No one knew why. He was gathering DNA to clone the people he liked. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.